15 of the zoning bylaws, which requires all driveways shall access on the way in which the legal frontage for that lot is established. The lot in question has frontage on both Westwood Drive and Cedar Street. The legal frontage is on Westwood Drive, although the access and driveway are possible from Westwood. Topography of the lot and the municipal utilities available suggest a driveway on Cedar Street would be the preferable means of accessing the site. And then the town planner update, old business, new business. And we can start by introducing ourselves, and I'll start with Mike.
Mike Young.
Marge Cooney.
Diane Trapasso.
Liz Banks.
Fidelis Homebreaker.
David Zonia.
Tom Welch.
All right, so the first order of business will be the minutes from the July 20th meeting. And myself and Marge were both absent, so we'll be abstaining from that vote. But,
I have a
ahead.
correction where it says Chair Banks called the meeting.
Oh, yeah.
It's Vice Chair Trapasso called the meeting. That's all I have.
Okay. Anybody else have any corrections, deletions, additions? No, doesn't look like it. We have a motion.
I make a motion to approve the amended minutes of July 20th, 2022.
You have a second?
I second the motion.
All those in favor? Everybody, all those opposed? All those abstaining? Okay. Okay. Do you want to, we have to wait until exact 35?
Yes.
Yeah.
I can do my town planner update, short and sweet.
Okay.
I'll be gone on vacation the next 2 weeks.
Oh, nice.
See you in September. And the office will be closed on Monday because I had already planned my vacation and Janae was invited to a wedding. So we will be closed on Monday, but the office will reopen on Tuesday.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
In accordance with the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 10 and Section 11 of the zoning Board of Appeals will hold a public hearing at the Center Office Building located at 301 Main Street, Sturbridge, Mass. 01566 on Wednesday, August 17th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. on the application of Russell Cravo pursuant to Article 18, Section 300 18.2 parentheses 3 of the zoning bylaw. The applicant is requesting a variance from Article 15, Section 300 15.13, relief from driveway regulations to permit a driveway off of the frontage on Cedar Street when the legal frontage is on Westwood Drive for property located at 25 Westwood Drive. The proposed request can be viewed at www.sturbridge.gov// zoning board of appeals /pages / recent filings or arrangements can be made to view the application and plan by contacting the Sturbridge Planning Department at 508-347-2508 or by email at jlacy@sturbridge.gov. Any person interested or wishing to be heard on this proposal should appear at the time and place designated. Elizabeth Banks, Chair, Sturbridge Zoning Board of Appeals.
Thank you. So those people that haven't been to a variance hearing,
Wait,
Hold on, I just, as an abutter, I'd like to recuse myself from this, so, thank you.
Okay.
thank you. we'll have the proposal presented. The board will ask questions, and there will be a time when we'll take questions from the audience. Yeah,
And I just have one bit of correspondence from the applicant. He emailed me, I had been emailing back and forth. My first question to him was if he would mind maybe reaching out to the abutters, because I had sent him all the correspondence. And then I knew that he had potentially had a conflict for this evening. And the other question I asked was if he had a purchase and sale on the property or if he was developing it for the owner. So just, he provided me comments to share, so do you mind if I read this before you start? Hi, Jean, I don't think it's in my best interest to engage in a debate over hypothetical and what-if scenarios with abutters on Cedar Street. The facts are in black and white. Locating the driveway on Cedar Street is better for the town, the environment, and the abutters. I'm willing to meet with any abutters once land clearing limits have been staked out for the driveway. We will be building a house on the lot in question, which is where the driveway will come in. We are currently in the design phase with the buyer for the property. Once the location of the driveway has been determined, we will move forward with permitting processes. Regardless of the outcome, I will continue to be respectful and attentive to all abutters, to all my projects. Unfortunately, I will not be attending the meeting this evening, as it is my father's 87th birthday dinner, and I don't mind you sharing these comments at the meeting. Best, Russ. And then I wrote back and said, okay, thank you. Does Peter Engel have the authority to speak on your behalf? And he said, Jean, yes, Peter is there to represent me. So I just wanted that on the record, that he's authorizing Peter to
We
speak
have
on
a
his
copy
behalf.
of that, Jean?
Pardon me?
May we have a copy?
Sure, I can make you a copy.
so before we get started, also, we received correspondence from Jean Boubon, the town planner, the building department, Board of Health, the Water and Sewer Department, Department of Public Works, Department of Public Works, the Fire Department, Conservation, and then letters from Mrs. Samantha and Mr. Seth Mansour, Abigail and Alex Angel, Mr. Daniel and Dr. Kathy Clark, Mr. Obi and Mrs. Chi Aganama. How do you say it? Aganama. Thank you. Right, so now I think we can get started with the,
Excuse me.
yes,
Have the butters cards been returned?
Yes. It's actually, just for the record too, it's the white cards, the certificates of mailing.
Yeah, the certificates.
Yep.
All right.
okay. You want to start?
Sure. Peter Engel from McClure Engineering, representing Russ Corvo, who is the developer for the property owner. Basically, the lot, it's a interesting shaped lot, has legal frontage on Westwood Drive, which is down here. It's kind of slims down to the minimum lot width for this zone, then opens back up. And there's about 49 feet of frontage on Cedar Street. Residentially zoned, the plan for the property is a single-family home. It is possible to do a driveway off of Westwood Drive. There is some significant topography, as you can tell with this, close lines down here. And it's not as steep from Cedar Street. There is still some grade change. So for the developer, it's not, he's not trying to save money for himself. He has a buyer who, whichever way that driveway comes from, is going to bear that cost. So it's a future taxpayer for whoever lives in this home. In looking at the site, there's gravity sewer on Cedar Street. There's public water, which is much higher in elevation than on Westwood Drive. Water pressure connecting to the water in Cedar Street versus Westwood Drive would be higher. From Westwood Drive, they'd likely need some kind of water booster pump. It's also a forced sewer in Westwood Drive, which would require a pump chamber at the house to pump downhill into that pump system. And then looking at site distances, Cedar Street's kind of a straight shot here. Better line of sight versus Westwood Drive, which is the frontage is on a curve, the inside of a curve, which makes it even worse. It's not a tiny curve, but a curve nonetheless. A driveway from Westwood Drive would require a much longer construction. Here, yeah. This driveway shown is 12% from Westwood Drive to the landing at that home, versus a driveway to Cedar Street. This is shown with a 50-foot section at 5%, upgraded to 10% to the house. Either way, obviously, the driveway is pitching towards a public road. Some kind of stormwater mitigation is going to have to be done. But there's going to be less stormwater off of a 10% driveway that is maybe half the length to Cedar Street versus Westwood Drive. That is going to affect the public roadway. Obviously, working with DPW to figure out what's an adequate stormwater solution. Right now, we're proposing infiltration trenches on both sides of that driveway, which can capture rain from almost a 5-inch rain event for this whole driveway to capture that without it going into the street. We're trying to not necessarily backdoor anything. We're trying to do what's in the best interest of the neighborhood, the town, with utilities, access, sight lines, safety of pulling out of a driveway. I think the DPW department, we met with them. They had the same feeling that access onto Cedar Street is better for this property than Westwood. Again, it's not doable from Westwood. It's just, I think, would have much more adverse impacts, stormwater, more land disturbance, more steep slopes, likely more erosion. We're just trying to do what's best in the interest of the town and the neighborhood. And if the board doesn't feel that way, it is a legally buildable lot from Westwood Drive.
How much longer is the driveway from Westwood than it would, and how long is it on Westwood and how long is it on Cedar Street?
From Cedar Street, it is 375 feet. From Westwood Drive, let me see here. Over 550.
Yeah.
And then, I guess lastly, I could share, this was recently brought to our attention. The lot to the north, which is 170, I can take a copy of that, pass it down, 170 Cedar Street. Very similar situation, although the legal frontage on Cedar Street, so the driveway's off Cedar Street. That driveway is 500 feet long, has a grade change of approximately 50 feet from the road to that house. Unaware if there's been impacts or complaints about that driveway, but the driveway that would be going in here would be much, not much, but similar, about 100 feet shorter.
I ask a question?
Okay, would you like to start, Marge?
I just want to make a comment or a question. All right. Generally, most of what we're dealing with, like, are maximum 8% slopes. So this is quite a, you know, there's a lot of difference between 10 and 12, and then the length are the same. So, all right. And there again, to verify, the house is going to be built for the owner of the property that presently has the quitclaim deed.
So there is a interested buyer in this property that would be buying this property and building this house.
Okay. So the transition, actually, outside of him building the house, Mr. Corvo has no interest in it, except naturally, he's building it for somebody, for the owner. Thank you.
Question, on the Cedar Street side, do we have any idea what's underneath the soil? Do we have any ledge in there that's going to need to be dealt with?
So this whole area is kind of mapped. We looked at soil mapping, official geology maps. Shallow bedrock, 4 to 5 feet, and that's for pretty much this entire property, whether it's Westwood Drive or Cedar Street. Mr. Corvo recently constructed, I think he's on his third house down on Westwood Drive here. Obviously stayed out of this steep hill, and the homes are down along the roadway. But he didn't hit any ledge there. In my opinion, it's probably more likely that there'd be ledge encountered in this area than really anywhere else, but it is possible that there could be ledge there. The idea is to not blast. Blasting is expensive and causes issues, or can cause issues. Obviously, there's required permits and pre and post blast surveys and all that kind of stuff, but the hope would be to not have to blast anything if ledge was encountered. The goal would be to hammer it or scrape it down as much as possible. It may be required for those utilities.
Well, hopefully, if they blast, they make sure they have the proper mattresses down. Went through that one time.
Any more questions, Mike? Mike,
No, I'm good. That was my only question.
do you want to ask any questions right now?
Not right now, I don't.
So do you plan on doing blasting?
The goal is to not blast.
You have any questions?
What's the, I know the information is probably somewhere here, but what's the difference in height, right, from where the building is to the, to Cedar Street and where it is and Westwood Drive?
So Westwood Drive, the road elevation is down around 720, let's call it. And we show the house at 778, so 58 feet of elevation change from Westwood Drive. From Cedar Street, Cedar Street's at about 745, and the home at 778. So 33, so there's about a 25-foot difference.
Okay. And on, with this site plan, I would assume that the driveway follows that curve to compensate for the steep slope?
Correct, yeah. Not a whole switchback. We were able to kind of keep it to a half of a switchback to get up that hill. And obviously, it's very close to these property lines, so. But yeah, we tried to keep it as high, because Westwood Drive this is the high point on Westwood Drive at the frontage. This is about 10 feet lower. So if we come in on the high side, we're about 10 feet closer to this building area, following this, the top of this ridge, and then cutting up.
All set for now? David?
Yeah, I'm sorry, my ears don't work as well as they used to. What was your remark, or what was your comment about blasting? Did you think there was going to be a necessity for that?
It's tough to say, so ledge is probably 4 to 5 feet in that area. The goal is to avoid blasting at all costs. There may be a necessary hammering. I mean, if blasting was necessary, it would only be for utilities within that driveway. But the goal is to not have to blast.
Of course, that's the goal, but in your professional opinion, and you've seen this before, what do you think?
There's probably going to be ledge encountered either driveway situation. It really depends on if it's a shaly ledge or if it's granite. May be able to hammer and break off ledge without blasting. My opinion, I think blasting is more likely to occur from Westwood Drive than it would from Cedar Street.
That's interesting. Okay.
And if you were to have to blast Westwood Drive in, you'd be blasting for several hundred feet more than if you had to blast from the Cedar Street. Is that a,
Yeah, not necessarily.
Yeah, not necessarily, but if blasting was necessary the whole length of that driveway, then yeah. I mean, from Cedar Street, the biggest cut on that driveway we have is about 8 feet, maybe. Whereas from Westwood Drive, right in this area, I mean, there's a 12 to 14 foot cut here. So it's much more likely that ledge will be encountered here than it would be up in here.
any more questions from anyone?
Can you explain how, I know you did explain it, but I just want to understand exactly how that works on both site plans, how you plan to compensate for runoffs, because you did explain it, and you said, at the side you had,
Right. At this, we're not showing it on this plan, not that it wouldn't be done. We're really only showing it on the Cedar Street plan. But at this point in time, basically the driveway would be crowned, similar to a roadway. Each side of that driveway would have a, what do we call it, a 3 foot wide by a 2 foot deep trench filled with stone. So as the water sheds off that driveway, it goes into that trench. The idea would be for that to then infiltrate into the ground. It might not all infiltrate into the ground depending on the size of the storm, but I think some of the DPW comments are at the edge of the roadway. They would want some kind of swale to ensure that that runoff is staying in the gutter, not getting into the roadway. So that would be incorporated on both situations as well.
Because if I were, so taking this plan and when I look at this, right?
Yeah.
And so you're going to be coming out right in front of, trying to make out what number that is. This 14? No, on the Cedar Street side.
Looks like 155.
155, yeah, so you're going to be coming out right in front of 155 on this plan. So, I would be, I'll be concerned about runoff,
Yeah.
you know, and, so having that well, properly mitigated would be of optimum importance.
Right. Yeah, and obviously working with DPW is going to require, if this were to happen, DPW would require a driveway permit. They're going to review whatever stormwater we do and ensure that it's constructed properly. And I think for that, I mean, not that this, there is more area on Westwood to move this driveway. We held the high side so that we wouldn't have to grade as much. There is more area to move this driveway, but there is, I believe, a driveway directly across the street from this one as well.
It's going to be left as more impervious as you can leave it. Is basically what you're saying there.
As much pervious, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's more pavement, more grading, more cutting with a driveway from Westwood than
That's what I'm,
Cedar Street.
that's what I'm asking, yeah.
All right, any other questions from the board? Not at this time, you can always come back, so, yeah, we can take, if there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak. Okay, you come up and state your name and address.
I'm Thomas Creedon. I live at 14 Westwood Drive. I'm the driveway on Westwood Drive across the street from where this driveway comes. My first question is, the letters that you indicated at the beginning of the hearing, were they in favor or against the,
From who?
well, you listed off 10 or 12 people who wrote in. Were they in favor or opposed or?
Yeah, there were 5.
The DPW, well,
No, he's talking about the
the
abutters.
abutters,
There were 5,
There were five of them.
there were 5 letters,
yeah.
and they had concerns.
Okay.
There were people with concerns. That, concerns if it was built on Cedar Street.
Okay. I'd like to make, in the previous, in the, below where the house is going to go, there is a lot that comes onto Westwood Drive, which was built last year, maybe 18 months ago. I assure you, and in order to do that, they've blasted, I'm not exaggerating, 10, 12 times. The ledge up there is really significant. I would be shocked if they could cut an 8-foot trench to build an 8-foot deep trench through that area without blasting. That was what was proposed by the presenter. If they came down to Westwood Drive, I assume that the driveway presented come down to Westwood Drive, there would be nothing excessive beyond 12 feet. Is that 12 degrees? Is that correct?
12-foot cut up in this area.
No, but the slope,
The slope, 12%, yeah.
never to exceed 12% or an average of 12%?
Oh, it's 12%. The whole thing is 12%.
Okay, answer the question I asked.
Maximum.
Okay, not to exceed 12% at any point,
That's the town regulation, yes.
Yes, okay. There was a debate about that in the conversation I had Sunday. The, and how deep would the cut be?
In this area, about 12 to 14 feet.
And up on the cut to Cedar Street, what safety precautions are going to be put in when you make a cut like that? That's my question.
Say that, ask that question again? Well,
You're creating a cut through an alleyway, for lack of a better word. And you're making 6-foot drops through it. What safety precautions are in place for the abutters? I mean, there are a lot of children there.
you'd have
I'm
to,
sorry, what's so funny?
no, you have to ask him.
Well, that one's not working. Oh.
Safety precautions for children during construction?
No, when it's complete. You're creating, you have right now a general slope. I've hiked it 100 times. Well, so a passable slope, now you're creating 6-foot drops. Is there fencing going up? Is there any type of protection?
Well, it is private property, I would expect, you know. Obviously, they don't want children coming on a construction site, but I don't think it's their responsibility to put up safety fencing.
And insurance.
Once a driveway
Do you
isn't
know what an
constructed.
attractive nuisance is?
What was that?
Do you know what an attractive nuisance is?
I do not.
Well, this is one right here. You're creating a situation that's just going to attract children.
Why would that be?
You're creating a drop. I mean, just like any retaining wall in town, you see kids falling off them, jumping off them all the time. You're essentially putting up a 6-foot high retaining wall.
It's a graded slope, which I agree, there's a drop. But, I mean, were there children hanging out on this site when this was being constructed? Was there
No.
children hanging out at 170 when that driveway was constructed?
We're not talking about construction, sir.
Afterwards?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a private residence.
Private property.
Yes,
Why is it their concern if other people's children are trespassing on their property?
exactly.
It's a legal building lot in a area zoned for residential use,
I'm familiar with the bylaw, sir.
so do all these other properties have fences surrounding them? I don't understand the issue with child safety for a residential home.
All right, maybe the board understands it.
So sorry, where I thought you were going, right? When you talked about safety, I thought the point you were trying to make, which I also thought as well, was, because of the slope, with cars coming down, and if something happens, brake fails or something, and it's going straight down house, not to be funny or anything, so I thought that's where you were going with that question.
Well, that's certainly part of it. On the Westwood Drive side, I'm much more concerned about the runoff. If with that width of driveway on that slope, I mean, you and I both had a front row seat to next door. What happened during and after construction? I mean, that my basement will flood, no matter how much mitigation they put in. They'll never be able to stop it all. Much less my brand-new driveway. And they drive a brand-new driveway because when they put the sewer line in, they didn't put up a berm and the water got under it and destroyed it. So I had to put in a new one. And, but that's the Westwood Drive side of it. That's the debate here.
So you're saying you have concerns for both sides?
Yeah. But we're focused on Cedar Street right now. That's the request.
Well,
Any more questions?
So basically, your concern is, after the house is built and everything's done, of concerns of children playing in this private residence?
Yeah, they're creating an attractive nuisance, yes.
but parents are responsible for their children's actions. My kids wouldn't trespass on other people's properties when they were taught not to.
But that's not what
And
this
it's a
board.
buildable lot.
Right, and this board is not here to,
Right.
a civil, I mean, for children playing on private property, that's not even their property. I mean, we have no control over that.
It is a buildable lot.
Right, we're to decide which side is better for the driveway.
Yeah.
So it's going to happen. Just deciding which
Right.
is better
Well,
suited.
it will happen if, like, on Westwood, because that's the legal one.
Right.
We're here to decide if it's better to be on,
West,
On Cedar
Cedar
Street.
Street.
Exactly. May I ask a question? That lot is one house, that's all that's ever going to be built.
Yeah, it's not, there's not enough frontage to break it up anymore
Well,
through an
I
A&R
mean-
process. I mean, they could do a subdivision, but if there's a house there, they can't do a subdivision.
Well, this is what I'm saying, there's other,
Right, oh, the variance would only apply to a single-family home. It's not gonna be, there's not enough frontage on Cedar Street to do a subdivision.
that's going to be a concern of other people too.
Yeah. No,
So
the-
that's what I'm saying, because it's a large site, let's face it, you
Yeah,
know?
oh, yeah. No, the,
And the size of the house for the site is an average size,
right.
50 by 28. Yeah. Yeah, but we're here, like I said, our concern is the reason for the variance.
Yeah, and we're only trying to do what's in the best interest of, neighborhood and the town. We're just trying to get a direction forward, really.
Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak?
My concern is just for like the erosion control and the runoff, especially this way.
But if you're going to ask a question, use the microphone.
Yeah, just especially this way. My driveway, I'm in the one on Westwood, 11 Westwood.
And your name?
I'm sorry, Tony Bonetti.
Okay.
My driveway's probably
Are you on Westwood or Cedar Street?
Westwood, 11 Westwood, right to the left of that driveway, right there.
so your concerns are for Westwood.
Yeah, I mean, either way, I mean, that house that's being built is probably 30 feet, I think elevation change higher than mine, so I'm worried about runoff from that too, just erosion and everything. But this driveway, I mean, that is probably 20 feet from my driveway. So I'm worried about all that cut through right there and what it's going to do to compromise my driveway, because it kind of falls off right there. So that's my concerns.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, yeah, thank you.
And I'm Seth Manser from 148 Cedar, so just north of the proposed driveway location for Cedar. And as has been mentioned a few times here, kind of looking at first the Cedar side, the property owner that we bought the property from, they actually tried to dig an in-ground pool just to the north of the lot line there. And I can tell you, looking at that, looking at where the water line that we had installed a couple of years ago, you're going to hit a lot of ledge, and it's not shale ledge. It's solid. It is solid. So we have a rubble foundation, and that already, it's a 1955 rubble foundation, and if there is any blasting, that's of serious concern. When the blasting was going on for Tony's lot down here, our house shook pretty considerably, and we didn't get any notifications of that. And even neighbors up to Cooper felt those blasts, and it was pretty considerable, and it was inconsiderate of the developer at the time that there weren't those notifications. So that's definitely a neighborhood safety question and concern. I want to raise that. In in terms of the, what Mr. Engel shared about the curb, putting a swale into the gutter on Cedar, if you walk that property line, there's absolutely no gutter right now. So from the 3 properties that Mr. Russ has recently developed, there's anytime you go during a rainstorm or shortly after is considerable runoff. And so really want to make sure that the town takes serious consideration for any kind of drainage for the driveway permit, because what was done on those other properties was definitely insufficient. And it's hard for me to picture where the water would go. It's either going to come onto our property to the north or Dan and Kat's property to the south, without creating an infiltration basin of some type at the bottom of the driveway, or tying into the town sewer, which I don't know if you can, or I don't think you can do. I don't know, but if we could maybe start there, Mr. Engel, and just speak to the mitigating situation you're going to do there. To it's pretty much a straight shot of water, and after that, it's about a quarter of the way into the driveway. There's a marking. Is that like a culvert or some type of system that would move the water from the?
This thing?
Yeah.
That's just a contour label.
Just a label. Okay. And so you have the driveway pitched on either side into the infiltration basin. And then for all the water that doesn't make it into the infiltration basin, would you mind speaking to, and I guess my concern is you're just going to do whatever the DPW says. And I guess I'm concerned that you're not coming with much of a plan other than you're just going to defer to whatever the DPW makes you do. So if you'd speak to that, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. So I guess a couple things. As a residential home project, just as a general stormwater thing, doesn't even fall under the state's stormwater regulations, doesn't require anything. Obviously, we don't want to do nothing. We're not trying to flood this road out. We're not trying to encumber other neighbors. These infiltration trenches at the end would tie into some kind of swale. So it was a remark by the DPW director that they would want a swale into the gutter if there is an insufficient gutter. We can look at working with the DPW to correct that. I know there is a catch basin further down here. I don't know whose property it's in front of. It's unfortunately, this access is kind of at the top of this hill on Cedar Street. There's no drainage structures within maybe 200 feet of each direction. It's going to be working with DPW, maintaining proposed drainage. If DPW wants more details of what we're going to do here, that's part of that driveway permit process. And they can always require more if they don't want to sign off on the occupancy permit. I think to talk about the issue down here, I don't believe any of those houses had any stormwater management at all. Most of these houses probably don't have anything. So what he's proposing, or what we're proposing for this driveway is more than probably what 99% of those houses on Cedar Street has.
Okay, thank you for your feedback. So for the board, if you could, Mr. Engel, if you could just toggle between the two slides. So we have a visual of, sort of, question at hand is, there's the proper frontage for Westwood. The lot frontage, as I understand it, is 49.4 feet, just shy of the 50 feet. So on the one hand, I feel like I'm splitting hairs, right? We're talking 0.6 feet, right? But,
Can you speak up a little?
yes,
The mic.
No, it's not into the microphone for
Yeah,
us.
you have to have a
It's
mic.
for us.
getting,
You have to,
For us.
okay, sorry, as I'm talking,
That fan
I'm
blowing, it's
here,
hard to hear.
sorry.
And we can't shut it off, so.
Here, maybe I'll
you come up
come to the
here.
other side because the, I'm hearing
You're
myself
getting the
echo.
feedback, right?
And maybe just keep the microphone a little bit.
Oh, okay, perfect. That's great. I love talking louder. I just want to, yeah, that's great. So the question at hand is, by right, Westwood Drive, that's, as far as it's clear, Mr. Engel's been hired, developer is spending money, it's pretty clear he's going to likely move forward with the project. So the question at hand is, does the board authorize, this variant? And so one question I have is related to the last question around drainage. So as you have the nice dog leg at the bottom, it's a different situation than what Tony has for the very straight shot that comes straight down the property on his, the lot line essentially just right. It's a straight shot, and it definitely impacted the credence and quite a lot of sediment runoff, not only into the street but also down into the wetland area at the bottom of Woodside Circle, and similar on the other side of Cedar, where when there's frozen water, springtime, water's not infiltrating, it's going to be running off into the road, and it's I can even see it from my driveway. It sheets across the road, and I have a much shorter driveway than what is being proposed here. So with the dog leg, it seems clear to me that there could be a number of mitigating cistern or something at the bottom of that driveway on Westwood that would ensure that any water coming above the, call it 425 feet of driveway above it could easily be mitigated in a cistern, in a catchment basin. So then really the only water that would be hitting Westwood would be that last section of driveway. It's a very small amount at a pretty gentle slope. So a good amount of it's going to run off into the side. I just want to at least make that observation. And so some of the arguments made by the developer, just like to address them kind of one by one here. So the line of sight out of the driveway, if you look at the photos referenced in the packet, and for those that are familiar with the area, what he did was it feels rather sneaky. He put a very straight parallel picture looking north, looking south on Cedar Street. And yes, there is a clear line of sight, but the rate of traffic averages between 45 and 55 miles an hour, though the speed limit's only 30. People just sail through our area. It's a dangerous street to pull onto. It just is. Westwood Drive, I don't know offhand, I want to say it's also 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, and the average, my guess, having done a lot of walks on Westwood and Woodside Circle, is about maybe 25 to 30. It's a nice, slow. The other argument made by the developer around the driveway safety is visibility. So if you notice, so the area all the way to the right, heading down Westwood Drive, that is all this future owner's property. And if you look on the attachment here, there's a lot of vegetation. But that is the sole responsibility of the homeowner to manage the vegetation for safely pulling out of their driveway. And with proper vegetation control, you can easily mitigate the visual issues of both the curve and the elevation change of Westwood. And then the parcel just to the left is nearly fully cleared, other than, I want to say, a couple of trees right on the corner that would be not on this new parcel. So the visibility, so I'm just trying to address each of the different arguments the developer made to express the hardship reasons why. So you have the sight line visibility from Cedar versus the Westwood Drive entrance, the volume of vegetation. Essentially, on Cedar, there's very little vegetation is going to be left from the amount that's going to be cleared. And then for future, so the developer Russell, right, he is not the future resident. So if I was buying this house, I 100% would want my driveway to be on Westwood, 100%. It's a great place to walk. It's a nice area for kids to go and play, compared to Cedar that there's really no kids younger than middle school age that walk on Cedar. So from a long-term safety of the property consideration, part of the decision, if the decision is going to be made tonight, is what is the future parcel going to be like for the family household that lives here. That's also a consideration I want to, so there's certainly the site disturbance. There's going to be, they're going to have to deal with solid rock one way or the other. It's going to be hammering, likely some blasting, and then in terms of the quantity of area cleared, it's going to be a great view, and I have a very hard time believing that after the certificate of occupancy is delivered or is granted, should that get to that point, that that entire area behind Tony's house isn't going to just be fully cleared, regardless of the driveway location. Whereas that tiny strip of land that goes over to Cedar, it would be pretty costly, and you wouldn't get the view that you would onto Westwood. So the argument made that there's going to be less clearing is 100% accurate during the construction phase. But in the long-term ownership of the property, whoever owns that property, I anticipate them to want to open up their view for a lovely scenic view. And those trees are going to be cut down. And so if the argument is, if there's that element of the argument for a variance, I just want to make note of that there's going to be a lot more trees cut down here in the future. And by not cutting the trees down on the Cedar side, that'll be fewer trees cut down on the parcel, in my opinion, in the long term. So there's, right now I got a 6-month-old and a 2.5-year-old. Six months isn't walking, the 2.5 is. So I absolutely understand, and I've, keep the kids knowledgeable and on what the lot lines are, et cetera, but when a driveway is installed literally right next to our property, and this goes for either driveway location, a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, that's it's a new driveway. As Mr. Creed noted, it's an attractive nuisance, and so if this variance is granted, I would request that a vinyl fence, 6 foot tall, would be installed abutting our property.
You mean during construction?
As a permanent fence, ma'am. And we have a number of neighbors, other abutters that also have rubble foundations, that also have concerns about shifting during a blasting. And then Mr. Obi and Chi-Chi, that live directly across the street, have a safety concern. I think it was mentioned in terms of what would happen if a vehicle lost their brakes. And as I see it, the dog leg on Westwood, it's bad either way, but there could be some mitigating, guardrails or other over on the Westwood, whereas on Cedar, there's no way to stop a car. And so the property directly across the street would be directly impacted, and that's whether losing brakes or, on an icy winter night, whatever, that the driveways are properly sanded or salted. So you could easily sail right across the street, right into their driveway and in their house. So those are some of the concerns that our neighbors on the Cedar Street side have brought up, and my first time at a variance meeting, so I guess, do I just go back over there? I'm happy to
And you,
speak to it.
I wanted to read something from the DPW about the stormwater.
Please.
So this is from Heather Blakely, the head of the Public Works Department. Both site plans have been reviewed, and the preferred direction for the driveway and the utilities, sewer and water, is from the Cedar Street side. Sightlines out of the driveway are acceptable. Stormwater shall be addressed during construction with tracking pad and erosion controls to prevent an impact to the roadway or neighbor's property during construction. All collected stormwater not able to infiltrate into stone trenches shall be directed to the edge of the roadway and not allowed to sheet flow onto the roadway, into the roadway. Contract shall be responsible for any required work along edge of roadway to keep stormwater off roadway. Cleaning, pulling back road edge. All permits for water, sewer, and driveway shall be applied for prior to starting work. All details for water and sewer connections shall be followed. Cedar Street is a scenic road, so the stone wall and trees will need to be addressed. And also from Mark Angiulo, DPW, it said, from the DPW standpoint, it would be more beneficial for the road if the driveway goes on Cedar Street, as the slope on Westwood is quite high and in turn would cause runoff issues onto Westwood. Moreover, the slope may not be good for water pressure. At the same time, it must be agreed that a variance can be allowed for an access on Cedar Street.
So what we do is we can condition a lot of these things in a variance, as if approval is agreed to by the board, but we have to go over the criteria, and it has to meet that criteria. So there's certain findings, as the board knows, that we have to meet. There's also an appeal period once a decision is reached. So there's a 20-day appeal period, once a decision is made. And it's effective from the day, that the meeting is closed. If it's granted, or appeal, either way.
If I may?
Yep.
I have two concerns, and you spoke to both of them, and you spoke to both of them as well, sir. You spoke to both of them as well. Number one, I believe you said that the traffic on Cedar Street is, the speed on Cedar Street is supposed to be 25 to 30 miles an hour? Is that
The
what-
speed limit's 30 miles an hour for both roads.
25 to 30, yeah, for both of them, but the speed exceeds 45 to 50.
Yes.
Now, these people over here, these folks over here, you thought that, it was your assumption that the speed would be much less than that, and they're all shaking their heads, no, it's about the same thing. People in Sturbridge don't care about the speed limit, I guess.
Going away from Cedar Street, for the most part, when they cross this property, they're going no more than the speed limit.
Okay.
Coming the other way, Probably 25% of the cars are in the 40 to 50 range.
So that in and of itself doesn't, that equates both roads, if we would just take the statistics there. The other thing is the rubble foundations, okay? They're there. We are not sure whether you're going to have to blast or not, but it's more than likely, according to you, that they are going to have to blast. I don't have a crystal ball, and you don't have a crystal ball. You've got a pretty good, you live there, but I would be concerned about the blasting for a number of different reasons, but I'm not so concerned right now that it's going to be done in a manner that's going to be irresponsible. I think that, I'm hoping that it'll be in a responsible manner. You come from a construction company that has a good reputation, and consequently, that's that. So those two issues seem to be negated. I don't know which way this, I like your idea about putting a drainage mitigation at the bottom of the road there, okay? But there are things that have to be done by the person who eventually buys the place, including that 6-foot fence. And somebody mentioned abrevieties in one of their letters and putting them up. I'm concerned also for your well. I'd like to make sure, I don't know, whatever mitigation can occur with the well, or whatever can or cannot be done so that that's undisturbed would be wonderful, but I don't know if there is anything you can do about that. So, we're between a rock and a hard place here. You are in a very enviable position because you've got these two people butting heads, and whatever comes out of this, you're going to win either way. And that's all I have to say about that. That's my observation.
So, and Jean, you can speak to this more. If blasting is necessary, we have rules and regulations for the fire department, correct?
Yeah.
That they follow.
Can I weigh in on
has to be
this?
followed.
Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt. They blasted the lot across the street from my house. They did damage to my house. I first called the building inspector, who told me the fire chief was who to talk to. When I spoke to the fire chief, he said, I'm only responsible for issuing the permit. I'm not in charge of enforcing it. That was his response to me. All I could do is hope if my house is burning down, he won't say, I'm only responsible for the smoke detector. I mean, I spoke to the selectman about it. I was supposed to address it with them. I spoke to a previous town administrator, who's a friend of mine, about this issue. He would have written the guy up right then and there. So the hope that we're going to get help from the fire department on this issue won't happen. He literally said that to me, that he's not responsible for enforcing the permit that he issues.
Which is why I asked about if they are going to be blasting mattresses down more than enough, because I had the same experience that you had with a neighbor, and it almost curled my hair permanently, and it shook the heck out of my 100-year-old neighbor, that he thought that we had an earthquake or something else. We were running out of our house.
I argue that the developer knows he's going to be blasting. I mean, this gentleman here
Yeah,
went from, oh, we hope not to, yeah, in my professional opinion, we probably will.
Well, also, the fellow that did the blasting was very professional too, I understand. But he got off the property real fast, let me tell you. After I put a call in.
I'm Cheryl Wood-Creedon, 14 Westwood Drive. I'd like to talk about three things. I'd like to talk about Westwood Drive itself, where the proposed driveway would come out. I would like to talk about the rock that is on this property, and I would like to talk about the potential for runoff. So first of all, on Westwood Drive, may I point at the map? We got two things going on Westwood Drive. Here on Westwood Drive, there's a hill that slopes down and then curves around. Right here, when you come out of this driveway, it's going to be a blind driveway. You have to look down and the cars are going to be underneath the ridge. In the past, so just on Westwood Drive, which is less sloped than this proposed driveway, I believe, on icy days, we have seen cars. So there were three vehicles in a row. The first car slid and hit our neighbor's mailbox. The next car, and the slide starts here, the next car slid, saw the car butting up against the mailbox, and so they tried to avoid it, and they wound up downhill in our neighbor's driveway. And then finally, when the town sand truck got there, they started to go down, they started to slip, so they turned around and went down the hill backwards. And so that's Westwood Drive right here, with less slope, I believe, than this would be. And so these people are going to be coming out of this drive. They're not going to be able to see what is coming up this way because it's kind of on a curve and it's downhill from them. So that's a problem with the road and where this driveway is. It's a serious safety issue.
Aren't we going to Cedar Street, though, when we're talking about Westwood?
Well, this is, I'm talking about Westwood.
Well, we're not,
Well, we're talking
they're
about-
proposing Cedar Street, Cheryl. So
I've been hearing them talking also about Westwood. So.
they're asking us
So
to
we don't have-
approve,
so
they're
we don't-
asking us to approve Cedar Street. That's the
Okay,
reason
so
for
I
the
don't have to
variance.
worry about Westwood.
Oh.
Westwood is, that's, if we don't give a variance for Cedar Street, Westwood is the driveway.
So, like on Westwood, there is serious rock here. It's like, it's exposed rock, you see the ridge line, the big rocks come out right here, the ridge line goes out, down and around halfway across. This one, you can see it, and the ridge comes right down to the road. So there's huge rock here. For this lot, the initial developer, the initial guy who was gonna work on it, he started to have the guys who were putting in the sewer system blasting out the rock. And it was so much rock that he gave up. And then last summer, they were blasting for, not solid, but they blasted more than 5 times.
Oh, it's close to 20.
Yeah. And so to say that they don't anticipate blasting here,
Or either spot.
yeah. It's like this is, and it's not just a little bit of rock. On the lots that this has been developed so far, they kind of scraped back as far as the ridge, so they didn't have to deal with the extensive rock that's in here. There's a lot of rock. And when you take out, so based on what we have seen from other developments, when they're putting this in, all the tree cover is going to go. And the water is just going to flow right off that slope. And I know that's true because that's what happened next door.
I just want to ask you a question for reference. The houses that are being built on Westwood now, are they right? Is that?
So this is a proposed lot here, and the ridge comes
Right, but there's a house
right
under
here.
construction.
So there's a house under construction, and it's right here. Right
That one's
here.
under construction? Okay.
So
Just
this one's
getting
under
it up.
construction, and then the next 2 have already been built.
Okay.
Right, yeah, no.
So we've got Westwood's a problem, the entrance into Westwood's a problem. So just with this slope, it's slippery. And so coming here, I'm almost guaranteed to have them kissing my car. Or if they move it over slightly, there's serious rock right there. And that goes right into my front door. Drainage is going to be incredible with no trees. So I think I talked to it.
All right, thank you. Would you like to add something?
Seth Manson talking again. Ultimately, the shape of the lot and the history with this developer having worked in this area, ultimately, this is a financial hardship he's been fabricating and orchestrating for a long time. He left this lot as one of his last ones he wanted to work on, knowing that he would have to get a variance, and by developing these other lots, you know, he's no stranger to the topography of this area. So that's just, you know, for the board's decision, I would just ask that you take a look back at the history of this lot, of the area, and there's a reason why it was 49.4 feet for frontage over on Cedar. Whoever was subdividing didn't want a driveway down there. So a little bit of, you know, historical precedence, and just thought of, you know, if we allow, you know, these changes, sets precedent for future developers to squeeze in lots where, you know,
A variance, it's not a precedent-setting thing. They're individual.
Understood, ma'am. But from what I understand from the board, the board takes a conservative approach to variances, and so I just asked for that consideration. Those are all my remarks.
I have a question. Do we close the public hearing before we vote?
Yes, you do.
We do, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But you should talk about the findings
We do the
of a
findings
variance.
before we close the public hearing.
You should at least, with the variance, you should at least discuss the findings, so
Yeah.
It's been a while, so I'm going
Right.
to refresh my memory.
you rarely do variances. So really, you've heard a lot of information about, I'll say, the proposal to come in, the proposal before you actually is to come in off of Cedar Street. But the question before you actually is, does the petition rise to the level of meeting the 3 criteria necessary to grant a variance? So we've heard a lot of information from abutters. I've met with abutters. I spent a great deal of time with Mr. Manser. I think there are a lot of very valid concerns raised in terms of, you know, the blasting. I was unaware of the treatment of Mr. Creedon when he tried to get information about the blasting, which, not my department, but I don't find it very acceptable. But so there's been a lot of information on concerns about runoff, site distances, speed limits, blasting, and I think they're definitely all valid concerns. But I think really what's before the board this evening is, does it rise to the level of being able to receive a variance to, you know, does it meet the shape, soils, topography, the hardship, and can it be done without detriment to the public good? And I think the flip side of that really isn't a question for this board. I think that's the alternative, is that construction will happen from Westwood. So, you know, I think that could enter into the hardship finding. I think, you know, financial hardship, but also hardship maybe to the greater neighborhood. And I think that's what the board has to weigh. And I think that you should be doing some deliberating on that before you think about closing the hearing. Because if during that deliberation process you decide you need something additional and you've already closed the hearing, you can't ask
accept
for
it.
that something additional. So, does that help?
Well,
Okay.
May I speak?
Yep, yes, you
Okay,
may.
relative to the discussion before us, for the record. So, right now, as it stands, there's absolutely nothing to prevent the builder from building that, on that property with the driveway to Westwood Drive. And then the ZBA, we can't do anything about it, that's not what's here.
That's not exactly true, Michael. I will appeal the decision of the building inspector and be back before you.
Well, that's your right, but
That's
it's
your
about
right
what,
to do as
what
an
we're
appeal.
doing here tonight. is, number one, the builder can build to Westwood and get a building permit, and then anybody who opposes that, like you can do what you want to do. I mean, that's free country. So that's important. I want that to be totally understood. A lot of the things that came into discussion, just, again, just for the record on this hearing, things like speed limits and enforcement are not under the purview of the Zoning Board of Appeals. You got to go to the police department for that. Road pitch and grade, not the ZBA, that's the highway department. Vegetation, how homeowners plant shrubs on their property to affect visibility when entering a road. I mean, I don't know whose responsibility that is except the people who plant the shrubs. So again, the ZBA can't go to someone's property and say, we need you to cut down that tree because we think so-and-so can't see out of this driveway or something like that. I know on Cedar Street, there's a couple people who've installed mirrors who have difficult driveways so they can see. I live on Cedar Street. I drive up and down Cedar Street many times a day. I'm familiar with some of the drainage issues that we saw from 170 Cedar Street and also 160. That's that little split level right across from Cooper Road. But at this point, it seems everything has been mitigated, although there was way too much runoff over the road for a period of time. So I would have to say we just have to look to the DPW to be specific with the builder and say, look, this is what you're going to have to do on this side of Cedar Street, so you don't have water sheeting across the road, which was in the comments by the DPW. So, once again, the thing before us is the requirements, which is there's a finding number 1 regarding soil conditions, shape, or topography of the property, which affects the property but does not generally affect other property. Required finding number 2, that there is a hardship, whether real, imagined, or whatever. And then finding number 3, that the variance could be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without nullifying or substantially derogating from the intent or purpose of such bylaw. So those are the 3 things that we have to discuss tonight, okay, on the board, with total respect and awareness of the opinions of the abutters, and we don't take your concerns lightly. But again, we have specific duties that we have to perform and rules we have to follow. And so I will leave it at that. I've said what I have to say this evening.
Say one other thing. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And Mr. Creedon did serve on the ZBA for years, so we did have variances when you were sitting on the board with me. And so you are well aware of the criteria and that the appeal system goes in once the town clerk records it with the registry. So there is a 20-day appeal period. So we have to go, I mean, it's a buildable lot. We cannot deny that it's deemed a buildable lot. And that's what the deed description says, so, there's nothing that we can now say it's non-buildable. So the best thing is to try to find out the best and suitable and more equitable position on it, whether it's be cedar or whether it be woodside as the egress or ingress. That's all I have to say.
Can I say something?
Yes.
So my, yes to everything that has been said. But my concern as well is, as Mike stated and other people have stated, the current approval is to have the driveway going off of Westwood, right? So one way or the other, it's going to be Westwood or Cedar Street. So my concern, in addition to every other concern, is what happens during construction, right? Because, I know builders, promise a lot of stuff, but Doesn't always happen that way. So when Tony's property was being built, there's a lot of runoff from there for a long time down Cedar Street. Sorry, not Cedar Street, down Woodside Circle.
Yeah.
And, the lots were constantly, because I live down the street, so I know, because I had rubble and sand and everything being washed down from there. I don't even live close, so I can't imagine what happened, to other people who were close by. So what the DPW did when we raised concern was, they came by, and for people who wanted, they built a, kind of like a hump.
A berm, I think they call it.
Yeah, between the driveway and Woodside Circle to prevent the runoff from going into the properties. So when I look at what you currently have up there now, that's going straight into 155. So if I were living there, the amount of, and that's going straight into the front yard, which is nicely, you have, a nice lawn there. All the runoff that's going to be going from there into that yard. So I'll be concerned with, if this is going to be approved, having something in there that, says that there has to be adequate protection, to make sure that all that stuff is captured and it's not just running into someone's yard and making a mess of the whole thing. Any which way it goes, either there or if it stays on Westwood, it's still going to be the same problem. It's going to be having a lot of, runoff from rain and all that going right into the compound. So that's I would like to see that either way, there's some protection to make sure that doesn't happen.
And we can make that a condition.
Exactly.
Right.
Can we do that?
Yes.
Yes, we can condition on wall variances, like special permits.
So on finding one, soil, condition, shape, and topography of the property, which is conditions especially affects the property but does not generally affect other property in the zoning district. Well, I believe it meets that. The shape alone meets that
Makes it
criteria.
unique.
Unique, the shape, yeah.
As well as the topography. So that's my opinion on it. I feel that it meets the condition of finding number one for soil condition, shape, or topography.
Right, and it's,
Does anybody disagree with that? Okay. So then, we're still
so do we
discussing. I don't want,
do we want to take a,
we should discuss all of them and then
Right.
vote on them separately.
or vote on them separately,
Each have to be voted on separately.
so we can vote on finding one, vote on that we agreed that it is unique?
You can do it that way if you'd like, or you can do them all at the end, so, but if you want to just, one at a time, that's
We-
fine too.
One at a time, because
Do
then
we have to
can,
close the hearing to vote?
Yeah,
well, should we?
I'd like to
yeah.
just discuss them all
I
before
think,
we.
yeah.
All right, we can discuss,
I
and then
think
we
you
can go
should
back and
discuss all
vote.
the findings before you take any votes.
Yeah.
And then you can vote each one individually if you would like, after you close the hearing.
Okay, okay. So,
All right, so
so we
finding,
all agree on one?
yeah, you guys agree with finding one that it meets that criteria?
well, you have to specify completely, right?
What?
In the actual motion, you have to specify how it actually meets that finding,
Yes, when you get to the
Right.
point of the
when we
motion.
get to that, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, finding two, that there is a hardship, and it's financial or otherwise. So, I believe there is the hardship by putting this driveway on Westwood, it's a hard,
I think it's because of the
You've got
the
more
land.
than 12% slope,
Right, I
there's
think
more to deal
it's a
with
hardship
there.
because of the land on
Right, and the slope.
the
Yes.
slope and the shape and.
the steep, I visited the property and I was
I did too.
quite shocked
Shocked.
at the approach from Westwood. I couldn't believe that you could actually put a driveway in there, it's so steep.
Wouldn't want to be going up that in the wintertime.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it also has to do with the sewer.
Sewer.
It would be a hardship putting the sewer on Westwood. There's a lot more clearing of the land. It's disrupting the land much more. So, did you want to say something?
No, I was just waiting for you to discuss the financial.
It's financial or otherwise, it doesn't have to be
I know,
financial.
but financial or otherwise. So the otherwise, you're saying, no.
Costs more to do,
Financial, I don't see that as being even considerable, because he's going to pass on that financial when he sells the property in the house.
We really don't
Whatever
take
cost-
in the financial part of it.
that is one of the criteria, whether it's, financial or otherwise. So there is a financial if you're going to have to do.
Yeah, but it's not going to cost him anything out of pocket. He's just going to pass it on to the buyer.
Well,
And he's got an agreement already. So I don't see that as being financial.
Yeah, I think where the financial thing comes in,
That's not
right,
the right-
is.
that's
if-
not the right interpretation.
Now, this is my understanding of that, right? If
Not the
having
right
it on,
interpretation.
on Westwood means that it's going to increase the cost of building by, I'll just throw out a number, 50,000, right? So, and then when you look at that compared to other similar property,
Well, yeah, but you're talking about general. I'm just saying if he's given a piece of property and he's gonna build builds a house and he knows that he has to go on to Westwood, okay? Then he knows what the cost of that house is gonna be ahead of time. So if he continues to decide to build on that property, that's fine. If he decides not to build on that property, then he's gonna find, he's gonna have to bear the cost and pass it on. So maybe it was a bad deal of buying this piece of property.
The owner of the property
Yeah,
is the one that is having it built.
right. He's having it built as a spec home. He's not gonna live in it.
It's not a spec home, it's, he has a buyer who wants to build a
He has a buyer
house.
who wants to build a house on,
So the person who is going to live in that house has hired him to build it.
Okay, so he has a buyer that wants to build a house.
So the person who's going to live there would have the financial burden.
Okay, it's not gonna be the builder.
Correct.
I don't think you're off too far with the $50,000 estimate. My comment is, with all the savings being made, if you go out to Cedar Street, I really would like to bring back the fence as a condition.
Bring back the what?
A fence along the property line.
I don't think we
I
can
don't think we
condition
can do
it on
that.
that
Absolutely
basis.
can. You know you can, Marge.
Not that I know of. No. Well, we
I
have,
defer to the town planner.
yes. Can we demand that they erect a fence 6 foot tall?
The board can impose reasonable conditions, so if the board deems it reasonable, you could include that. If you don't deem it reasonable, then it shouldn't be included.
Now, is that the fence that you had?
Yes, sir. So either way, right, there's going to be there's a choke point over off of Westwood, right? So the property line's getting pretty narrow, and then over on Cedar, that pretty much that strip of land between Dan and Katz and ours to the north is going to be effectively clear cut for a driveway, and infiltration on the sides. And so for that, we would request that primarily for safety. And as a consideration, I appreciate the dialogue and conversation around cost. So this is a hot real estate market. There's stupid money being put into properties, and there's a lot of money. And the reality is the developer is not here, and the potential future buyer is not here. And per the request, per the application, it is Russell on here. So the current registered owner is the same person that the lot was subdivided from, Miss Christine Zanaro, who is the son. So Russell's name is the applicant, not the future homeowner.
Right.
So the future homeowner is not here, is not speaking on their behalf, and is not advocating that we would like to spend less money to have this property developed. Just to make that obvious, right? That person, those two people, those two stakeholders are not present. I appreciate that Gene read the note, but the reality is Russell did not communicate to any of us ahead of time, nor after Gene's suggestion, nor did he reach out. I've been in commercial development, and anytime that I've gone for a variance, I have personally door knocked every butter. And I can't say that everybody liked what was going on, but I gave them that professional courtesy and neighborhood courtesy. That did not happen here. And this is simply a parcel of land that's subdivided off of another 18 acres to the north. There's other things that could have been done with this parcel. He could have bought the whole thing. He could have done a number of different things. And
But we have to go on what we have in front of us. And I still don't, I know we have asked that construction fences be put up during the whole construction period, but I don't recall that we ever deemed that a fence like.
I have never seen the board require a fence between two residential properties.
That's what I'm saying.
I've seen it more between a commercial and a residential.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
But as I said, if the board deemed it reasonable, you
Yeah.
could definitely impose it as a condition.
All right.
But you'd have to determine it to be reasonable to the request before you.
Okay, but I'm trying to recall if we ever did it. I know we've done it for construction fencing. Yeah, okay. That clarifies that.
And also the hardship is with the length of the driveway. There's going to be more clearing, more excavating. The stormwater is less on the Cedar Street side. It's more on the more stormwater issues on the Westwood side. And the length, the increase in length of a couple 100 feet.
Right.
Is pretty big. So,
May I ask Jean a question? For the town planner?
yes, go right ahead.
Jean, if we were to continue this meeting, could we have Mr. Corvo come in and the present owner of the property? Being that that land was transmitted to her through another family member with the same name, she might have more information on that property. I don't know. I'm asking what
I mean,
your
you
opinion.
can certainly make that request, but you can't compel her to.
No, we can't.
The applicant
No, I
is actually Mr. Corvo, and she signed the application allowing him
Right.
to apply for this. So I don't know that she'd be able to offer anything in terms of this application.
All right, that's what I want that
don't know
out.
if the board believes Mr. Corvo could offer something that Mr.
Well, I think Mr. Engel did an excellent job, so I
he's
don't
been
know if we
authorized.
would gather any more. I'm trying to see, if we,
And he's been authorized to speak on his behalf, so.
and as I said, I think he's done an excellent job in doing it, and I want to thank him for the large plans. We don't often get them anymore.
Not a problem.
Is there anybody that disagrees that there is a hardship?
agreement.
Well, I agree.
Board?
I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree.
Do you agree?
Okay.
You agree?
All right, so finding 3, that the variance could be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without nullifying or subsequently degrading from the intent or purpose of such bylaw. So, in my opinion, it's more detrimental to the public good if it's coming off of Westwood
Westwood.
Drive.
Westwood.
So,
The house is gonna go there no matter what. It's just, I think it's more of a,
I'm sorry, we can't shut this off and we can't hear because it's, sorry about that. And I apologize
So
for everyone
as-
freezing. I've
No, that's okay.
texted facilities, but
So what we're
Did you-
saying
so-
is as they're
I heard what
requesting
you
that they
said, Liz,
come
I just
off
couldn't
on
hear that.
Cedar is less detrimental.
detrimental.
correct, that's what I
Right.
said.
Yeah.
Less detrimental if it's coming
Coming
off
off
of
Cedar.
Cedar.
thank you.
And also, I think it meets the criteria that it is unique to the area, which is another thing that has to be unique to the district in which it is located. And I would have to say, just on the basis of the comments,
What,
it meets that uniqueness.
what do we measure? What's the measure for being detrimental?
Of what?
What,
What's the
What's the
criteria?
yardstick?
that it's doing more harm
Harm. That's the,
to the,
are there other areas in it that have as much ledge, have as much steepness, the percentage of it? And, basically, I guess,
like, I
Right.
think the driveway coming off Westwood affects more people in the neighborhood. It would be more detrimental, because I think coming with a slope like that coming down, I think there's gonna be, even though they try and whatever, I mean, if we got a bad rainstorm, I think that's gonna be a lot. Whereas on Cedar, I think it's not as,
Not as steep.
Steep.
It's not steep.
Yeah, because I also look at it from a point of traffic.
But
Cedar
where-
Street,
I'm not looking at it as traffic. I'm looking at it as
Yeah.
the driveway itself, what the driveways are causing
Okay.
then.
if it
And that's
meets the
what I think we have to
criteria
look
for
at,
it.
is what the driveways are.
Yeah, well, I'm looking at it in the same vein.
Oh, for the
issue.
safety of what?
Safety issue.
Right, I mean, you have to consider safety, but that's not the main thing that we have to look at. The safety
It's the-
comes in with,
It's detrimental to the community.
Which one is,
the driveway.
But I
it's the
promise
driveway,
you,
the
those
driveway
driveway would be
criteria.
less detrimental to the community. That's what we have to consider.
yeah, because I think the snag for me there, just for discussion, is that, so we're talking about community,
Right.
right? So if we're going to talk about community, right, and I'm thinking, okay, then the traffic is the community driving,
Yeah.
right? So,
No, I agree.
so if you have, vehicles coming from the lot onto Cedar Street, in terms of detriment, I see it as, okay, well, it's less it's more detrimental on Cedar Street because you have more traffic. And it's less detrimental on Westwood because there's less traffic, just for discussion. So that's why I'm like, okay, so what's the measure? What are we looking at? Only the cost or the effect of putting the driveway within the lot? But then when we speak of community, then we have to see how does it affect.
Well,
you know.
that's why we send out all of those notices to the different department heads so that they give us their input. And if they don't respond, it means they don't have a problem with it. So that's why part of that is that we have to, get the input from the different department heads.
Yeah.
So, you know, our hands are in a way,
I mean, the
It's a very strict
DPW has
criteria, so-
concerns with it, like on Westwood, and, I mean, I kind of feel that, DPW, I mean, that's their expertise, I mean, they're the ones that are giving the permit for the driveways, so, I mean, they have to deal and construct the way DPW, like, wants, so, I mean, that's how I feel that it's.
they're not gonna get an as-built if they deviate from it.
Exactly, so, I mean, we just have to give basically, we have to give permission for them to do Cedar Street. That's basically what we're here
I
for.
guess, you know, there are things I'm unhappy with, but it meets the criteria.
Right.
So,
If it meets yeah.
gotta change the bylaws, or something,
Oh.
Mass general laws or whatever. But
Okay.
So,
Anybody that disagrees that it does, no. Do we all agree that it meets?
meets
Number
number 3.
3,
I do.
I do.
yeah.
You agree? Yeah.
You guys think so? All right.
And the rest?
I think they agreed.
know.
Did everybody agree?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, everybody agreed.
Let's see. We close the
Now we
public
close the
hearing.
public hearing.
All right, so we'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second,
All those in favor? Okay,
okay.
it was unanimous. So we'll take a motion on the findings, correct?
Yes, do we want to do them individually, or do we want to just?
I think individually, because I have a feeling we're gonna be putting conditions, or would it?
No, I think we put the
Conditions go
conditions
at
go
the
on the
end,
variance.
yeah,
Go at the end.
Yeah,
actual-
at the end, on
Oh,
the
all right.
variance, because we still have to,
Motion.
we still have to grant the
All right,
variance. So
we
these
can
are
do the findings all together.
Okay.
Are you gonna make a motion?
I guess I can kind of try it,
Go ahead,
and maybe if I miss something,
And
I can
try
fill
to
it in.
project loudly because,
Okay.
so we can get it.
Is
Okay.
there a thing to flip up that you can shut off the
No,
ball
I need a
part?
screwdriver and I have to go in there and shut the thing down. The thermostat, I know, it's freezing in here. We're like,
The noise.
I'm always hot and I'm like a
I'm not cold
popsicle.
now, I'm not cold now. All right, so,
Sorry.
all right. I make the motion to find, according to Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 10 and Section 11, that the variance required by Russell Corvo for the request of a driveway on Cedar Street meets all 3 findings. Finding 1, soil conditions, shape, or topography of the property. Lot C or 25 Westwood has frontage on both Westwood and Cedar Streets. Therefore, has an unusual shape in comparison to the other properties in the district that have frontage only on one street. The property is steep. The topography required a greater of 2-to-1 side slopes on the eastern side of the driveway. Therefore, we say it meets finding 1.
Which driveway, though?
On the side of the driveway on
Westwood.
Westwood.
That would be on the Westwood side.
Yeah.
All set?
I think, so that's that's it.
Also,
And this lot is also unusually shaped.
Shaped.
She had that.
Yeah, that was mentioned.
Okay.
shape
Okay,
and uniqueness to the area.
And uniqueness, I thought I said, yep, I said that too.
Okay.
Okay.
We're good.
so do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor of finding 1? Okay, unanimous. Okay,
Okay, finding 2 is hardship. It's It's linked to an unusual cause by the land's uniqueness and problematic soil conditions, shape, and the topography forms the hardship.
Did you want anything else, like?
Anything else? Do we have to list like the cost and the land disturbance will
No.
certainly be greater? I don't think
We
I
can't
think it's
do that.
because of the
We
soil.
don't have the cost or anything.
Right, it's the condition and the shape and the topography that is causing the hardship.
Okay, do we have
Yeah.
a second?
Second. It's the, and, you know, the 12% grade
Grade.
slope that
I
we
didn't ask for
have too.
discussion. Any discussion?
Mm.
All those in favor? Okay,
Is that unanimous? I can't.
Yes.
see that.
Unanimous, yes.
Okay.
okay, finding number 3.
Finding 3 is without substantial detriment to the public good. It's a suburban residential, allows for a single-family home dwelling by right. A single-family home in this area is appropriated, permitted, as a permitted use, and does not degrade from the
Okay.
initial purpose of this bylaw. The- to construct a single-family home and a driveway on Cedar Street does not create any new detrimental to the public good or substantial degradation from the bylaw.
Do we have a second?
Well, yeah, and if you want to put that, it is developable and will contain a single-family home. You want to
I
put
think
that.
you said
I
that.
said that in the beginning.
Oh,
Dwell
that
is
was
by right.
finding number 3. though.
Yeah.
That's where we are.
That's
We have a
where-
second?
All right, oh, you have it in finding number 3? I didn't
Yes,
hear
we're
it
on
in
3.
finding
We're on
number
3.
Okay,
Okay.
thank
Do you
you.
have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Mike. All those in favor?
Sorry, Diane, I
No,
didn't hear
that's
it.
okay.
Wait a minute.
We're all, how
All
many do
those
we have?
opposed?
1? So we have,
And are you,
Abstain.
you're abstaining?
You don't have enough to vote, it dies.
then we don't have enough, okay.
5 votes to grant a variance.
Yep.
Or to deny a variance.
It has to meet
so.
all 3 conditions, so. And don't, we usually explain why we abstain.
Yeah, I'm going to abstain because of the definition of detriment to the community. I think safety is an issue.
No, I'm just saying for the
Detriment to the
record,
public
it's
good.
not that I'm asking.
No, I'm
It's-
just, that's
yeah.
my explanation.
Yeah.
And I, you know me with safety, okay? If you don't know that right now.
Okay.
But that is why it's the definition of detriment to the community.
It's really not, it's detriment to the public good, just to clarify,
It's
Yeah,
not,
it's public good.
it's
Well,
public.
okay, so detriment to the public
to the
good.
public good.
Yeah, I'm worried about a couple of kids, or anybody's kids, getting, there's been accidents there, with drunk driver hitting a tree, blah, 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 blah. That is what I'm staying to. I'd like for you to change that, or add to that, the definition, expand that definition to include safety.
It's in the Mass General
It's
Law.
Mass
It's not
General
our-
Law,
It's a
these are state
bylaw.
laws.
It
No,
can't change
no,
it.
it's a state, these are state laws.
It's not our bylaw, it's the
It's
state.
not our bylaw.
Yeah,
All right, then
so
I'll-
I can't change it.
No, it's a state bylaw of safety.
It's the
That
state
makes- The state-
statute,
That change
just to
anything in your mind?
clarify.
And
So what is the vote? What I've-
So what
we're
is-
saying that if it's on Westwood, it's more safe
Yes,
or more, or less detrimental to the public
yes,
good?
yes, that's what I'm saying.
Your opinion?
All right, so it's still,
Because in my mind, okay, I'm looking at the traffic on Cedar Street. okay, as being much more dangerous than Westwood. Now, if I'm going down the wrong way, if I'm heading the wrong way with this thought, clarify it for me, please.
So wouldn't that be a 4-2 vote then, Jean?
No, hold on, we're still, no, we're
We're
answering.
answering his question.
No, that's what I'm trying to find out.
Just clarify this for me, because if it's a detriment to the
Public good.
common good, okay?
Public good.
Public good, okay, the public good.
Yeah, I'm just trying to.
That is, yeah, okay, if it's a matter of safety, public good, I think people, human beings are part of the public good. Not just the driveway, not just the traffic, not just everything else. I feel as though the public good may be harmed, or it's a detriment to their safety.
Okay.
But,
Explain
Jean,
it to me.
can you explain this a little
No,
better?
I can't.
I just, I mean,
Well, I mean, you know, it's detriment to the public good, so I always try to, I go, you know, the greater good. And so to Fidelis's point, he thinks the greater good would be jeopardized by having the driveway on Cedar Street, because he believes more people travel on Cedar Street than on Westwood. And Dave feels that the public good would be better served with the driveway on Westwood, because he feels it's safer than Cedar. So there's nothing I can explain to change that. It's their
Right.
opinion on this matter. I mean, I just say, when I look at something serving the public good, I looked at the cumulative impact of Westwood versus the cumulative impact on Cedar. And I took into consideration our DPW director's comments, that she believes the driveway would be safer and that stormwater would be better managed if it comes in on Cedar. And that's with full respect to the abutters' concerns in that neighborhood. And if I look at the Westwood side, and taking into consideration the testimony that came in tonight from Mr. Engel about, you know, the need for greater excavation, potential more stone removal if he comes in from that side, from the residents of Westwood that are here, that talk about the, you know, a greater curve, steeper driveway. You know, I look at it as, when I look at the public good, I try to, you know, I go back to my old philosophy 101, like, you know, what is the greater good of the
So,
public?
okay, so just so that I understand, so so when we consider public good, right, because I took it as a single item thing, right, so we're looking at the driveway, and I'm looking at that slope, going right onto Cedar Street. And what I'm thinking of is, what's going to happen? Someone coming down that, and cars are flying down. I mean, Cedar Street is a busier road, you know. Westwood is a dead end. So, you know, you have X number of cars that come into Westwood. But Cedar Street, is a lot busier. And I'm thinking, that could be an issue. But if we, in consideration of public good, take into consideration every other thing, including the blasting, which that's a huge issue, you know, including
The stormwater and
the
all that.
stormwater and all that stuff, then I'll vote differently, if that is what we're, if that is in consideration as well.
So when I review this, I review it as a whole. I look at this as a home will be built there. It may go through some appeal periods, either way, whether you grant the variance or whether a building permit is granted. But I look at it as it's zoned for single-family homes, a home will be built there, based on, you know, staff review, commentary from abutters, what will be kind of the less impactful, and then therefore serve the public good better. And also attached to the serving the public good is, and without nullifying or substantially derogating from the zoning bylaw. And this is a single-family residential district. So either way, something will be built that complies or conforms and does not derogate in any way from the bylaw. And it's relatively unique in that it has two parts of frontage, which, you we don't really see that. So, I think it's something that will be developed after a time, after appeals are exhausted, or after, it goes through its due diligence, and so I look at it in that term.
Well, with that explanation, then I can change my vote.
Well, you see, this is why I went back to, we send everything out to the department heads and get their, no, I understand. But you see, this is why if anybody can prove it, there is the appeal process. That's why I mentioned that as well,
With what, the
There
way,
is a,
yeah, the way Jean explained it,
she explains it,
yeah,
not you.
the way you articulated it.
And I'm not trying to explain it to sway anybody one way or the
Oh,
other. I completely respect everybody's opinion. It's just you asked
I
how
can
I look
change-
at
I
it
can-
when
I
we
can-
wish to
I
change
can
it.
change my
Clarify it
vote.
better than we
So-
can.
So,
Oh, I can actually vote.
To re-vote,
why don't we re-vote?
We don't?
Yes,
We
we
do.
do.
Yes, we
But
have
it
to.
has to be requested from,
The person
losing
who voted.
side.
Person on the losing side
That would-
of the vote has to request that the
That we-
motion and vote be rescinded. And then that has to be seconded and voted, and then if you all agree to rescind that vote, then
Okay.
somebody can make a
So-
new motion. So either Fidelis, Dave actually
Is the one that
excused
we-
himself, so actually Fidelis would have to ask that the motion be rescinded.
that's not the winning side?
No, the losing side
The losing
has to
side has to
rescind.
make
Yeah,
a
you
vote.
lost. If you voted,
Oh,
All right, you
yeah.
lost.
Oh, right,
I see what you
okay.
mean. All right, never mind.
So
My brain is frozen from this air
That's all right.
conditioner.
All right, so
I-
now what?
All right, I make a motion to rescind the vote that we,
for
that.
finding number
Finding
three.
number
for fi-
three.
For finding number 3.
I'll second that.
Okay, so now
Now we're going
we make a motion.
Are you going to read the motion again?
Do I
Or
have to read it again?
Yes, you do.
I do?
Sorry.
I'll never get
to go
it.
ahead.
So,
Motion was
so
rescinded.
after
You may need to
discussion,
vote, you may need to vote on the rescinding.
Right, you do.
Oh, we have to
We did.
vote,
Yes.
okay, yes, vote.
So you need a,
All's in favor?
wait, did somebody second your motion to rescind?
Liz,
Okay.
seconded
So-
it.
we'll do discussion. So after further clarification on finding 3
Right.
from Jean, that is the reason why we rescinded the vote, and
Finding number
now we're going to
three.
vote. on-
Okay.
We're going to
On-
vote to rescind finding number 3. So
Right.
all those in favor of rescinding the vote? Mike?
Michael,
You're going to vote
Rescinding
to
the vote.
rescind the vote
To
that-
rescind number 3?
number 3.
No.
Motion that was made?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes.
no,
so
because
we
we're going to
vote-
vote.
To re-
Oh, okay, all right, I'm sorry, I misunderstood what was going on.
We rescinded, now we.
Can I have a cup of coffee, please?
Me too, I'm ready for,
I'll take a cup of coffee.
Now somebody can make a new motion.
all right, so the vote now is 6-0.
Correct.
Yes, to rescind.
So now we're going to vote
Now
again
we're
on the
going to vote.
motion.
All right, let's vote now. Oh, we do need coffee.
We need something.
All right, finding number 3, without substantial detriment to the public good, its suburban residential district allowed for single-family dwellings by right. A single-family home in this area is an appropriate permitted use and does not degrade from the
Intended.
intent on the bylaw. To, let's see, a single-family home in a driveway on Cedar Street does not create any more detriment to the public good or on a
Substantial difference.
substantial degradation from the bylaw.
Right. Now we
Do we
go.
have a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Okay,
Okay.
motion passes unanimously. Now, do we put conditions?
No, we got a motion to
No,
grant.
now you have to have the
Grant the
motion.
motion. We have to
Whether
grant
you're
the
going to
variance.
grant it.
Go ahead.
And you should go over conditions, though.
Yes, we have
Right.
all these conditions.
I would do the conditions first, and then have a motion to grant with the set conditions. So I had recommended
Yes.
a few,
Right.
and then
Yeah.
I would add an additional one, and then I'd like to talk about two for your consideration. So
Okay, so,
on the recommended conditions that I had were, number one, all work to be in accordance with the plan submitted. Number two, limits of clearing as shown on the plan shall be marked prior to construction and adhered to throughout the construction process. And Mr. Corvo contacted me before the meeting, and he had concerns that he would like the flexibility to be able to move the footprint of the house if he encounters ledge, and the limits of clearing may have to change. I think that's something that would have to be further reviewed, depending on what the clearing might be. And I don't, Peter, you're his spokesperson tonight, so I just have a problem with leaving that open.
As far as the clearing along the driveway, there's no question about it, that would be it. I think when I discussed with him, it was like 10 to 20 feet, wherever he might find a deeper hole where he could put the foundation.
Without
It's not going to be
blasting.
clearing the whole thing, but,
Just for the foundation.
yeah.
Is that what,
Well,
that's what
so,
Mr.,
yeah, so you either stick with what I had proposed, or you give a little bit of
good.
flexibility in saying, limits of clearing as shown on the plan shall be marked prior to construction and adhered to throughout the construction process, and at no time shall deviate greater than blank feet, or you leave it as what I have,
the way you have it sounds good.
to not deviate. It's up to the board.
I would think.
Can
My
you read that a little louder?
Oh, yes. So I had proposed limits of clearing as shown on the plan shall be marked prior to construction and adhered to throughout the construction process. The applicant's concern is that if he encounters too much ledge or rock in an area, he may want to shift the foundation so as to have less disturbance. The way I have it written does not allow that flexibility.
You want to put that in there.
But maybe you could just put what you said at the end, then no
Yeah.
greater than,
No greater than 10 to
10,
12.
12.
Or, can we say no greater than, there's a flexibility, 15?
We're closed.
This angle.
We're closed.
Let's go 15?
15?
But again, not for anything to do with the driveway.
Anything but the
Not-
footing.
right,
You're
not-
just saying the footing.
Correct.
So let's put that in, okay? Not to exceed 15% change in
No,
the
15
feet,
feet.
feet,
15
feet.
feet in the
15 feet.
footing,
From the original sighting.
footprint of the house, right?
Right.
And I would also say that the board should receive, or at least the planning department should receive notice prior to deviation from that plan,
Yes.
Insert
for the
Yes,
revised
yes.
plan.
Yeah.